Weird as the spelling might look, I've checked and indeed it is Fighbird. It's based off a really short-lived anime that translates to The Brave of Sun Fighbird. Translation doesn't help in this instance, but it seems the Brave series was quite a long-running one, and this was just one iteration. Anyway, this is a vertically scrolling shoot-'em-up where you control a mech. You're not flying as with many of these games, but walking. This is merely a visual thing because the screen still scrolls uniformly and you can't stop in place at all. There are two difficulties. Kenta is easier than Katori. Kenta starts you off pretty relaxed, I must say, and you're never overwhelmed by enemies. In fact, there are probably not enough, but then that's what the higher difficulty's for, I suppose. Pressing B fires your weapon, which is a kind of sword thing that also shoots projectiles. You can charge it up by holding B. Throughout the game, you'll pick up these floating icons that can give you extra options as to what a fully charged shot does, and you can cycle through these using the A button, giving a more interesting slant on your regular weapons. You have a health bar and it's really generous. You can take a lot of hits. I managed to get past the first 3 levels without ever dipping below halfway. It's a regular occurrence in the easier difficulty to get pickups that give you a full heal. The enemies themselves often aren't the biggest danger, rather you're more likely to take damage from laser or fire traps, exploding volcanoes, that sort of thing. In the Famicom version of the game, you could choose between 5 different vehicles, and there were different mission objectives like destroying certain targets or rescuing hostages. None of that is in this game, you're literally just getting to the end of a stage and killing the boss. The variation in enemies and their formations isn't huge, and they're surprisingly few and far between. Often you're just strolling along with nary an enemy in sight, avoiding the environmental traps. Where the game picks up in interest is the boss battles. These are stationary fights that use the environment as part of the attacks. The first one tries to suck you in by changing the flow of the sand that you stood on. The second one alternates between 4 lasers that shoot across the lower third, meaning you constantly have to change your positioning. While not super difficult, at least the boss fights are original and not predictable. The cutscenes at the start and between each stage are really cool. I didn't watch the anime, but I'm guessing it's based off that. They do a great job of setting the scene whether you can read the subtitles or not, and are even subtly animated rather than a collection of images. There seems to be no bass tracks to the music, making it quite tinny, so I shouldn't bother downloading the OST or anything, but it works in-game, as this frees up those channels for hefty gunshots and explosion sounds without any loss of audio. The same can't really be applied to the graphics though. If there are more than 3 or 4 enemies on screen, as well as their projectiles, the game is susceptible to a bit of lag. It's not too bad and can even help you out at times, but for a game nowhere near as graphically intensive as something like Gradius or R-Type, this is a shame. It has been demonstrated plenty that you can actually have a ton of stuff on screen without any perceptible slowdown. There are ways to do it. Ultimately, we have yet another Japanese exclusive shoot-'em-up that is up there in quality. This isn't the third of that trilogy I've been referencing with Battlejuice and Sagaya, however. The more astute of you already know what game I'm talking about, of course. For now, I can't wholeheartedly recommend this game as much as the aforementioned, but still, it remains an enjoyable experience over the course of 5 varying levels. Check it out for the cutscenes if nothing else. Thanks so much for watching this video. The Kickstarter for the book is now live. Check the link in the description for how you can back the project and be the first to get your hands on the Portable Power Encyclopedia, featuring more than 900 Game Boy game reviews and a whole wealth of useful information on the world's favorite handheld console. See you later on.